I think especially for something like what's happening with Evergrande, and always the key issue is what's going to happen in terms of, is it a systemic issue and what are the potential impacts? So the market is discussing it from that perspective, and what could potentially be the impact. Because at the end of the day, Evergrande is a very big real estate developer. But at the same time, we do think that whatever happens, the key focus will be what are the systemic impacts, and we don't think for now that there is any sort of systemic challenges, or that policymakers will get it to a point where there is a systemic risk.
Okay, but what does this mean for exposure to the China property sector?
In general, that's one thing that we haven't been focused on in terms of, barring what's happening with Evergrande. We saw back in March that the policymakers were shifting in terms of how they want to address policy. So they were talking about scaling back credit, and ensuring some sort of normalization of credit. And usually, when you see a decline in that credit impulse, that often has an impact on the China property sector. So for us, it wasn't something that we were looking at. It wasn't something that we were focused on because of the overall withdrawal or the reduction of credit and in the overall system.
Talking of policymakers, when you've got slowing economic growth momentum, as seems to be the case in China, Mary, it can be a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, if there is slower growth, it might mean there's going to be more accommodation from the policymakers, which could be good for the markets. On the other hand, it could mean, of course, lower profitability for a number of companies and sectors, which ripples around the region. So which do you think is going to be? Do you think overall slower growth in China could mean eventually a better and higher market?
I think the key thing here, and policymakers have discussed this time and time again, for them, really, it is about the quality of growth rather than the quantity of growth. And, for investors, in terms of the long run, that should be the focus in terms of not accumulating excesses, because accumulating excesses could be harmful for the economy in the longer run. So for us, and for investors like us who do have a longer term perspective on China, the focus then for policymakers on the quality of growth is important in terms of ensuring that stability of growth, not only in the near term but also in the longer term.